Good evening, everybody. I am Jim Secord, your host for tonight, and welcome to the second episode of Brum Tech Tapas. We were absolutely thrilled with the speakers, the event, and the response last time, so much that we decided to do it naturally all again. We like to describe Brum Tech Tapas as bite-sized culture from Brum's tech scene. Just make sure that I'm unmuted here and move my microphone a little bit better. Let's hope that I'm not too quiet. We like to describe Brum Tech Tapas as bite-sized culture from Brum's tech scene. We showcase amazing people and initiatives from across the region. The tech part is because Brum Tech Tapas is brought to you by us, Jump24, a Birmingham tech business. So before we crack on with tonight's lineup, I've just got a couple of quick housekeeping notes. First of all, we have a code of conduct for the event. The too long didn't read is be nice to each other. On a more serious note, if you notice anyone not playing nice in our chat room, please flag it with our moderators who will be keeping an eye out. We ask that everyone behaves as though they're physically in the room and writes with respect as they would speak to each other. The chat room is there for participation, so please do. If you've got any feedback or comments or about the event, you can share them here in the chat rooms or on social media using the hashtag BrumTechTapas. This is your event too, so please share your thoughts with us. This is about community. It's very important to us after all. We're always up for speaker recommendations too, so don't hold back if you know someone that would be a good recommendation to speak. There's a bit of time for a Q&A after each talk, so post your questions into the chat room as they occur to you, and our team will moderate and put them to the speakers. So, get involved in the chat room and let's get the event started. On to our speakers. Our first speaker tonight is certainly a familiar face to us as a developer at Jump24, but what you may not know is that he speaks on subjects outside of tech. So it will hopefully hit home now how important the subject of mental health is, as it features twice tonight. Mental health is something that many of us will be familiar with within the tech scene, considering the often fast-paced, hard deadline nature of what we do. But I mean, this doesn't just affect tech people; it obviously affects all of us. So, here to show some more insight into what kind of challenges people face and some coping strategies, I'd like to welcome Chris Miller to the stage.
Demi Lovato, Princess Diana, Adele, Dan Harmon, Lady Gaga, Martin Luther King, Michelle Obama, Abraham Lincoln, Justin Trudeau, Susan Boyle, Donny Osmond, Michael Phelps, Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Radcliffe, Ryan Reynolds, Beyonce, Miley Cyrus, Carrie Fisher, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Nicki Minaj, Zayn Malik, Gwyneth Paltrow, Caroline Flack, Halle Berry, Prince Harry, Katy Perry, Kristen Stewart, Chris Cornell, Robin Williams. Something connects every one of these people. Each one of these celebrities has publicly said that they have had mental health problems. Some of them have even since passed away because of their mental health problems. I'm going to talk about mental health coping strategies, or how to cope when everything seems wrong, because it's okay to not be okay. But why should you care? Why does this matter to you? You may have had a few bad days, or you may even have had a few bad years of your own. Well, according to Mental Health First Aid England, a social enterprise whose vision is to improve the mental health of the nation, in an article published the 15th of October 2020, that stated that 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health issue each year. 1 in 6 report mental health issues weekly. At the moment, we have 14 people watching. That would mean that on average, 3 of us would be experiencing mental health issues this year, and 5 of us would be experiencing mental health issues this week. You may rightly be asking, why can I talk about this? Well, let me tell you that I have experienced this firsthand. I have a diagnosis of cyclothymia. This is a form of bipolar disorder. I've had days where I've been so depressed I can't get out of bed, don't want to do anything. I've had days where I've been so manic that I don't feel like I need to sleep, like I'm invincible, like I can do 10 things at once and nothing can affect me. I've had days where I felt the world would be better off without me and contemplated suicide. I've had days where I've wrongly believed everyone around me is against me and that I'm the only one that's right. This is often called delusions. I have on occasions also had hallucinations where I've seen or heard things that aren't there. If anyone ever wants to hear my whole story on mental health, then please get in touch on Twitter and I'll happily share this with you. There's so much more to living with bipolar that I won't go into here. But if this is bringing up questions, you can get in touch on Twitter and I'll happily chat. And there's professional support and advice available from the Samaritans for 24/7, 365 days a year support. Mind UK for advice and services. Mental Health UK from advice and services. And the NHS for NHS-based services. And we'll share their contact details in the chat. So what then is the answer to the growing crisis of our mental health? There are some key things you can think about to assist in this and find your own coping strategies. Talking to people. Sometimes talking to people helps. That can be anyone from friends to family to employers to strangers that you can get in touch with. I have before now talked to my friends and had great responses where they've listened and asked what, if anything, they can do. It was really helpful. I've also spoken to employers. I've sat down and talked with my current boss. I had a plan of knowing what I was going to say written out and was welcomed into the conversation with my boss asking if there was anything they could do to make my working life easier. With a bit of careful planning, we've made some slight changes to my working day and it's eased the load. Conversely, I've also done the same with previous employers and been told to man up and deal with it or stop faking it to get time off. As you can see, not every person will be receptive to this, so being ready to talk is one thing, but being ready to potentially accept rejection or minimization of the problems is another. In a similar fashion, one of the things that helped me is letting people know what a bad day looks like. A bad day is often the hardest thing to talk about with mental health, but it's also the time when we're most likely to need help. Something that I have personally done is to let trusted people around me know what I'm like when a bad day is here or a bad day is approaching. Not every day is bad, but some are. So let people know the signs that you're having a bad day. Also remember, bad days aren't just depression. This can be when you're anxious, nervous, manic, or just generally not feeling right. The other side of this is letting people reach out to you and ask if you're okay, but also telling the truth is just as needed. If you don't let people know that you're not okay, people can't offer to help. Sometimes the help I need is just knowing that someone's there, someone understands. I have a circle of trusted friends and colleagues whom I feel I could talk to and ask if I'm okay and genuinely be interested in what I have to say. It's not always easy to talk about how I'm feeling. Sometimes I don't even know myself. On more than one occasion, a trusted friend has asked me if I was okay. I've said yes, I'm fine. That person knew me. He's spoken to me before, and we've discussed what a bad day looks like. He told me he could see the warning signs. I was over-focusing, withdrawing from people. When I did engage, I was talking too much. I was avoiding face-to-face meetings and a few other things. Because I trusted him before, he could tell me a bad time was approaching. He was right. I ended up speaking to my doctor, changing medications, and it helped to improve how I was feeling. That could have been a much worse situation, but thanks to a trusting friend with details, he could help me. Daily life affects how you are. I've often found that when I'm not eating well, sleeping well, and drinking well, or getting exercise, or just generally not looking after myself, I've become further unwell from my mental health problems. So yes, what you eat and drink affects you. As you can see from my well-toned physique, I'm clearly not good at this, but I know it helps, as when I do have periods where I eat and drink well, I feel better than when I don't. There's a time not long ago where I was feeling particularly low. This really screwed with my mental health. I couldn't quite explain what was happening, but it was. I went through checking that my meds were right, that my workload was okay, that I was taking time out for me and a few other things. Finally, I stumbled on the idea that it might be something I was doing. It turned out to be energy drinks. I was drinking these to excess, and I felt worse than if I just don't drink them and went for a walk instead. It's easy in hindsight to see what this looks like, but in the moment it's not so easy. I was drinking more than 2 of them on a day on average, but I just didn't associate one with the other. One way that I've often used to look at getting some idea of where I am on a daily basis is mood diary, a way of recording how you're feeling at a given time. And I believe our chat team are going to be sharing a couple of links to some example diaries. The idea is that you fill them in with how you're feeling, what you've done at the time, and it will help you to form a view of what might be going on. It's then about looking for patterns. So if you've got times where you feel particularly bad, look for patterns around that and things that you may not even associate. Often we don't actually know what our coping strategies are or might be. We may have never even thought about it. About 4 years ago, I was involved with a charity that dealt with mental health conditions that had a great system for helping you know where you're at and what might be affecting you. It was called the Sphere system. You marked 3 times a day on a circle how you were feeling in the various areas, then shaded in the area. The idea was that a perfect person, which doesn't exist, would have a nicely shaded sphere at the end of it, and you would see where all the kinks are. They openly acknowledge that a person could not, nor should not, ever achieve that, as we're all different. But then you would also write next to it what you had done since the last one. It helped you to identify what might have been having positive or negative effects. The key was looking at each one honestly, looking for patterns and the associations between actions and results. An example of one thing I didn't know was having a positive impact was when I drank 2 glasses of water between each one. I'd noticed that my mental state was slightly improved, as was my physical feelings of pain and other things from other illnesses. So I started to introduce more water. An example of a thing that I didn't know was having a negative impact was when I'd been playing a particular video game. Although my sense of enjoyment was increased, so was my sense of anxiety. I stopped playing that game and my state began to improve. So that's just a few coping strategies, of which there are many more. I want to finish off by revisiting that main statistic. 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem each year. Most people don't talk about it even if they should. You likely have no idea what's going on under the surface for people you meet every day. It's okay not to be okay, so be kind to one another.
Thank you very much, Chris. Very sort of poignant talk there, and really sort of fascinating insight into a personal story. So we're just going to see if we've got any questions. Let's have a look. Just going to read some. Out. So if someone doesn't know what they're feeling is a mental health problem, what would you advise them to do?
So the key thing with that is talking to professionals that understand this. They would rather see somebody that doesn't have a mental health problem, that is just experiencing a bad day, and advise them that that's the case, than to miss the one person that is experiencing a mental health problem. The other thing is that it actually helps mental health professionals to have that kind of mood diary in place. So the idea of tracing how you're feeling at any given time and passing that over helps. And when you do first speak to a doctor, the sort of questions you'll get asked is, over the past 2 weeks, have you felt? Over the past 2 weeks, have you experienced? If you've got a mood diary in place, you'll actually have a more concrete answer for that.
Okay, cool. We have another question from Stuart Langridge. You talked about coping strategies by drinking more water or cutting out a video game, but how did you know these things were making things worse? Because it's hard to tell from the inside how you're feeling.
Yeah, so that's about primarily being honest with yourself, looking at how you're feeling about things. And we as people naturally want to hide behind things of, yeah, I'm fine, we're okay, don't worry about me. But often we know that we do feel certain things. We may not have a name for what we're feeling. We may not have a way of expressing what we're feeling, but we can associate that this feels good, this feels bad. And the association between the two was more around the sort of overall result of, as I was drinking more water, I noticed that I felt generally better in myself. And as I happened to stop playing that video game, I felt generally better in myself.
Okay, cool. And I've got another one from Maeve O'Sullivan. If you think someone doesn't know, someone you don't know might well be struggling, can you suggest good ways to ask without feeling intrusive? Yeah, that's a really good question.
So that's actually a really good question. It depends on how well you know the person. So although you may not know them well, do they trust you? Do they deem you as a close friend? Even if you don't feel that you know them, the relationship can be sort of lopsided in one sense. I think when it comes to people you don't know, it's becoming more common to, in this country, be willing to answer the question of, are you okay? Honestly. If you feel that somebody is struggling and that they're not willing to talk about it, there is other options of, is there a mutual friend that is closer that you could ask for support in this area? But remember that this person may be not necessarily ready to talk about things themselves.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And I think we've got one more question. So from Fusion Technology Meetup, who I happen to know is Hannah. When you're starting to feel that you are heading towards negative feelings, what are your go-to coping mechanisms? I guess this is what you call sort of your mental health toolkit type thing.
Yeah. So for me personally, it's spending more time away from the computer is one thing that helps me. Getting out into the outside world, remembering that outside the window is this whole place that we can enjoy. Another one is ensuring that I'm actually sleeping well. One of the things that I really struggle with is a decent sleep routine. I can function on 4 or 5 hours. But if I do start doing that for any extended period of time, I notice that things are going downhill. So looking at that is a common factor. And the other one that really helps is just sitting down and talking to my partner about it more than anything. And just telling her, do you know what, today was a rubbish day.
Cool. Yeah, we've got one more. Here we go from Ebony Brotherson. If you could advise someone on how to start a conversation about their mental health with a health professional, friend or family member, what tips would you have?
So health professionals are fully aware that this is a really hard subject for some people to talk about rather. It sounds like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it actually is the sort of central key. Be honest. It doesn't matter to a health professional if you go and you tell them you feel like shit. They have heard it all before. And it's not going to shock them if you tell them that you've had suicidal thoughts. It's not going to shock them if you tell them that you're constantly feeling depressed, constantly feeling anxious. Even if you don't have the words to express what you're feeling, just go to them and talk to them about the fact that you're not feeling right. The initial exploratory questions would help to establish what that feels like. And it asks about anxiety, but in that question, it will describe what anxiety might feel like. So you may not know that what your experience is anxiety, but it will help you to get that answer.
Okay, cool. That's all we've got time for. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for sharing your personal experiences with us. And we'll be visiting mental health later. But first, in the meantime, we're going to change it up a little bit. So, how do you get thousands of people, each as eclectic, opinionated, and downright contrary as the other, to stop for a moment and engage with an object. That is the challenge that think tank Science Museum's Lawrence Butler takes on every day. And he finds ways to communicate the meaning behind incredible and complex scientific innovations. He's going to share a little bit, about what he's learned about that with us tonight. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Lawrence Butler.
Hi.
Hi, Lawrence. It is great to see you on Brum Tech Tapas, and looking forward to hearing you speak. Everything sound okay? You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready and waiting.
Cool. Take it away.
Okay, hello everyone. So I'm Lawrence Butler, Museum Manager at Think Tank Birmingham Science Museum. So before I was the manager, I was the education manager. So I've got a bit of experience in getting people to engage, both from schools, families, community groups, anyone we can really talk to and have a meaningful conversation. So I thought I'd start with my own definition of what engagement is. And my engagement definition is it has to be active. We need people to stop what they're doing, either mentally or physically, and change. So I'm going to share some nice pictures with you because it's much better than looking at my messy background. So stopping, how do you get people to stop? So it could be a question. People are walking around the museum, having a look, taking things in, slowing that down, but how do you get them to stop and actually take in what they're doing? So at Think Tank, my favourite object for this is a bubble car. So a bubble car is post-war, German, a bit like a Mini, but a slight difference. And people look at it and they like it. And how do you get them to then take that next step? Well, we could talk about the mythology of this car was produced from the front end of a German bomber plane after the war because they weren't allowed to make them anymore. But it's not the one I like to use. I like to go with where's the front door? Or where is the door anyway? If you don't know what a bubble car is, have a little Google, try and spot the door. It's the only thing I couldn't find a decent photo of. It's not just questions though, it's actions. So what have you got or what could you provide that will make someone want to do something, to join in, to challenge themselves? Got some nice pictures on the screen of some children taking part in some activities that were designed for the galleries to have a go. If you've got to build a Mini, it's good fun, different activities, something that they can physically pick up, have a play with. Springs, the little chap on the front has got a set of springs just bouncing balls around. It's intuitive, but it stops them. It means that they can have a play and have a think. The other picture of the children sitting in the tray was an engagement nobody expected. So this was an activity where we took Rice Krispies and we bashed them up and then used a magnet to draw the iron out. And we were talking about what's inside food. But we popped it on the floor, we were having a bit of a rest, and these children decided that rather than playing with what we wanted them to do, they'd actually just get inside the box and have a great old time. And it makes me think, although they weren't doing the activity I wanted, they were engaged, and it gave me the opportunity to talk to the adults around them, to the older children, and get them thinking about the actual activity. So as long as they're stopping, as long as they're actively doing something, I'm happy. So when we design the museum galleries, we don't design a whole museum at one go, luckily. We're looking for things that are going to form the engagement. So if we pop to the next slide. Or is that me? It's me doing it. No, it's not. Yes, it is. We can have things that are curious, things that are going to draw attention. So when you get to the second level of the museum, you're going to find a half a car and you're going to find a cow. If you can hear any background noise, my boys are just coming down to the toilet. We'll just live with it. It's fun. And this stops people in their tracks because they're like, what is this? Why is there a model of a cow next to a car? And because they've asked that question mentally, they go and investigate. They go and try and find out further information. The other thing we do is we take a great object, something that's really unique, potentially quite large, and we use it as what we call a gateway object. This is something that's going to attract someone from across the museum to where you want them to be. It's going to draw them in, and it's going to make them come across and stop and think and have a look. So we're using different techniques and tricks to try and get people where we want them. We're trying to get them to have these slight engagements. And for a museum, we're looking for two different things. If it's on the galleries, so as people walk around as a visitor, we're looking for an engagement time of between 2 to 5 minutes. Nothing major, nothing very long. It gives enough time to digest some information, but not cause a queue and take up the best activities. If we've got a member of staff with them, we're looking for 10 minutes plus. This could be a science show, a planetarium engagement, or it could just be someone walking around the gallery with a curious object, a piece of meteorite or a fossilized dinosaur poo, that people can then stop and talk about and have a hold pre-COVID and get engaged that way. So we're basing our engagement on what we're doing and how we're doing it. For people, 10 minutes plus. On your own, 2 to 5 minutes is fantastic. Anything longer, and it's really good. We're really happy. The audiences that we have, though, vary greatly. As you probably guessed from the first few pictures, Think Tank has lots of families with lots of younger children coming through the doors every day, lots of school children. But we want to work with as wide a variety as possible. So if I flick to the next slide, I've got 3 different galleries. Each of these galleries I was involved in, so I've got a bit of an understanding of what we were trying to do. The top one with the car and the children is Mini Brum. This is our under 8s gallery. This gallery was designed to engage children from 0 up to 8 years old. It has very low words because up to about 5 years old, reading isn't really an option. It's up to the parents. Lots of nice symbols and lots of very obvious activities to just join in and have a go with. So in this picture, we've got a car. If you see that and you're under 8, you're going to climb in and you're going to have a go. You're going to go into role play mode. This gallery has very low word count, but is very active. Lots of pieces, lots of loose parts, lots of exploration and testing. And that's what it was designed for. We've seen school groups come in here and they'll spend the first 5-10 minutes running around as if they just can't control themselves. And after that 10 minutes, there's a switch. And we've noticed that they slow down and they go to an area that they've spotted and they want to do more in. So although it's a very active, very busy, very vibrant space, it actually draws people into the certain areas they want to look at. This mini city can make these real small engagements and people spend between 45 minutes to an hour in here. But again, it's those small, each piece, taking it as slowly. The bottom picture is one of my favorite galleries. This is We Made It. So this gallery is all about making things in the West Midlands with a big Birmingham reference. It was designed for 8+. There are certain activities for younger children because we want the families to go around together and everyone to have as good a time as possible. But it has lots of engagement pieces which are there to draw out and get you to work as a team or to try different things. The exhibition that we can see directly in the picture is a glass mixing exhibit. So this is where we talk about how we make different coloured glasses. And it's all about using different chemicals and heating them up. And you get 4 different chemicals and you get a heat button. And you can try different combinations. And then there's 2 little glass vases at the front that change colour to show you what you've made. I've watched people play with this for 20 minutes plus, trying to do every combination, trying to find the right combinations that match the colours. It has that inquiry stage, that success stage, the things that people are really trying to figure out what's going on, and it's brilliant. We also have lots of objects, and we have a bit more text in here, and we have lots of colour, and this works with the audience that we're playing with. When we reopened Think Tank after lockdown in the end of May this year, we launched the gallery with the big turtle. It's called Our Changing Planet, and Our Changing Planet was designed to work with audiences 12+, a young adult audience, and those who are engaged in the idea of climate change and environmental activism. So we wanted a different feel. It's got more words, it's got more information to learn about, and it has lots of objects rather than doing activities. It's a very brand new gallery. We're still watching it. We're still waiting to see how people are engaging. But the turtle at the front is the gateway object. It's what draws in the families. It's what draws in people. And I've seen that for myself work. And once they've been drawn in, they go in and start to work on the gallery. Now, once we've identified our audiences, once we've planned how it's going to work, The last stage that we've done for the last couple of years is something called co-production. And this is making sure we're asking the right questions. So it's working with audiences before the gallery launches in the design phase to make sure that what we're going to produce works for them. So Mini Brum, we worked with over 200 under 8s. We worked with school groups, community groups, and family groups. And each group was given a different area of the gallery and asked what they found interesting. They helped design certain elements and bring what they wanted into this gallery. And it was a huge success. The children you can see there are from a school in Henley and Arden, and they produce their own mini museum. Our Changing Planet, we had a plan to do exactly the same, but instead of working with under 8s, we were working with 16 to 21-year-olds. And we wanted people who were part of this youth climate movement, people who could steer us into the right areas that are interesting. Unfortunately, we had lockdown and we couldn't delay the building of the gallery. Luckily, we have phase 2 that's going to launch in September, so we have gone back to our co-production and started to ask groups what they want to know. Phase 2 is all about positivity. What can we do to change things? How are you working in your community to make a difference? The whole idea, though, is that we haven't given a gallery that everyone knows the answers to. We haven't produced something that you can just Google. We've tried to draw on our objects and our collections. We've tried to draw on questions that are not answered yet. For instance, the main part of our Changing Plan is all about the Anthropocene and when it started, if it has started. And we've spoken to universities and scientists, geographers, geologists, and they've all come up with a different answer. So we've tried to portray that in this gallery to make people have a think, have a wonder, and come up with their own answers as they leave. Now, we've shown you lots of big things, but I just wanted to finish by saying that engagement doesn't have to be about the big and the showy and the unique. It can be about the small and the hard to find. So this is also in Mini Brum. So Mini Brum, under 8s, but we know it's going to be full of families. We know it's going to be full of parents, grandparents, older siblings who may not want to do the role play and get active like their younger siblings or friends. So we added in these tiny little mini people in Mini Brum. And not many people have noticed them. But those that do then spend the next 10 minutes trying to find out where they all are. So engagement is active. It's about making a change and a stop and getting people to work with you to get more information, change an opinion, and just have fun. And that is the end of my presentation.
Cool. Thank you very much, Lawrence. That's really, really fascinating. I can sympathise with your opening there, especially when it comes to the kids going for the box. As a father of a 1-year-old who can't stand, he's not interested in any of his toys. What he is interested in is all the packaging. So it's fascinating to see. It's fascinating to really sort of get an insight of how you go about making things. So we've got some questions that we've just spoken about with the team. So I'll just go with the first one. This is quite a I think this is quite a sort of a poignant one. And I think that it's been it's been brought to the consciousness by COVID a bit. But what can we do as visitors to support museums outside of just donations?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Money's a big issue at the moment across the whole of the world. Every sector is short. Visiting doesn't have to be a paid-for museum. It can be any museum. It's having people on site is really important. We're not about making money. We're about making sure that the collections and the objects and the stories are being told to the right people, and that's everyone. Its think tank is Birmingham Science Museum. So for us, for instance, the more people we have come in, the better. If you go to your local museum that's potentially free, even just being there, it's going to give the staff something to really enjoy. We've all missed having people to talk to over lockdown. We've all missed visitors. We want to share our stories. We want to engage. We want to make sure everyone's having a really good time. So yeah, visiting is key.
Cool. Great, thanks. I've got a question from the chat from Fusion Technology Meetup. Working to influence young, inquisitive minds must be awesome. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
That's a really hard question. I love my job. I find enjoyment in most areas, even the spreadsheets I have to work in. But for me, it's visitors enjoying themselves. And then when we reopened a couple of weeks ago, I saw an older gentleman with, I'm assuming his grandson, could be his son, and he was going around talking about everything and passing that information on. And then when his grandson wandered off somewhere else, he started talking to my team and telling my team information. And it's encouraging people to come in and share, either us sharing with them or them sharing with us. And that's the best bit. It's those conversations that really, really make the job fun.
Cool. There's another question from our team. What is the most engaged with exhibit that you've ever had? And why was it that particular exhibit, or why do you think it was that exhibit?
So the most engaged with exhibit is probably our digger. So we used to let people in on level 2, and it was the first thing you came across. A great big JCB that you could play with. All the levers, moving coloured balls around. We've actually removed it temporarily, and we will be putting it back in because we've changed the museum around over lockdown to make it easier to navigate. But having something big and fun that appeals to all ages was our most popular, which is why it will be coming back.
Who doesn't like a giant digger? There's a couple more questions from the chat. So Maeve O'Sullivan, how do you keep the topics current if you have, I'm guessing, long planning timelines?
It's really difficult. So it's looking for patterns. So most of the time we'll start with a engagement program that may not necessarily have physical elements. So it might not have a gallery or objects. So it's us talking about a subject. So before we did the climate change gallery, we'd done 2 projects, one called Operation Earth and one called The Crunch. Both of those had hands-on activities, demonstrations, but no physical objects. And we saw that the topics were really engaging. There were questions that weren't answered in those topics, which then led to our Changing Planet. So we work with other organisations to make sure that we are covering a range of subjects that keep us on a current topic.
Cool, thanks. And there is one more. There's one more question for the chats from Ebony. With COVID making things more virtual, how have museums and exhibitions adapted to the Zoom boom?
So we've started to live stream from Birmingham Museums Trust, which is what Think Tank sits inside. So that's taking people on tours that lead people around. I think the most innovative thing that we've done is for our schools program, where we loan out our schools loans boxes, and the school has one and we have one, and we live stream with them. And as we go through the loans box, they go through their loans box. So you have the same object, but the school has a chance to touch and feel and play while we do the explanation from miles and miles away, nice and safe. And everyone's getting this fantastic experience. But it is difficult.
That sounds brilliant. I think that's it. So that was absolutely fascinating. Thanks so much, Lawrence. Good to hear you speak. Right, so we're on to our final speaker of the night. So we've had mental health discussed from a personal perspective from Chris earlier. So now it's time to address it from an academic or a professional angle. COVID has undoubtedly brought our health to the forefront of people's consciousness. It's also been a time where we've understood better than ever the resilience that we're capable of when racial, religious, and social barriers come down. Our final speaker tonight wants us to draw on that resilience to alleviate inequality and improve long-lasting health and well-being of the people of Birmingham. She's an ambassador for This Is My City Birmingham project and runs a cooking initiative titled Dishes of Change. Please welcome BCU PhD researcher Angela Kumar. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Dave.
I was about to say you're muted. You've taken it off. Good. I have already seen the passion for what you do, the passion you have for it firsthand in a little teaser that we did beforehand. So I'm now quite super hyped to hear you to hear you speak. Are you all ready to go?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Correction though, I'm not the ambassador for This Is My City. I'm the community outreach officer, and I coordinate the Dishes of Change program. So there are other ambassadors, amazing ambassadors for This Is My City. So, but thanks for the upgrade.
I'm sure you'll get there one day. Cool. Right. So, so apologies for that. Anyway, take it away, Angela.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sharing now. Screen up. Yeah. Okay. So this is not one of those toxic positivity conversations. This is a conversation about appreciating what is and discussing resilience and appreciative inquiry. Appreciative inquiry seems like a bit of a foreign term, and I never come across it until I started to look into an alternative to understanding mental health and cultural sensitivity within the Black community. I came across a couple of mental health promotion conversations that talk about how we can support mental health within different communities using the resources that are already available. And I thought to myself, what would this look like if we were supporting mental health within the Black community? And that's where appreciative inquiry came from. Before I go into that, I'm just going to talk about how much different groups, organizations, races, religions have come together during COVID. I found this quote by Mahatma Gandhi that said, whenever you are confronted with an opponent, conquer him with love or her or it. And our opponent this time around has been COVID, an unseen virus, an unseen enemy that we do not know how to deal with. It has devastated our lives, to say the least. We've been in a whole year or more of lockdown. We can't plan holidays. The future seems all up in the air, but we still keep going as communities, as groups, as individuals. So many barriers have come down during COVID, and it's such a delight to see all of these things happening within our city in Birmingham. I have personally seen so much collaboration and kindness and compassion that has been shown, and it's exciting to see what the future holds for all of us. I want to find out what resilience means to you. Thinking about the term resilience is not always exciting because sometimes I'm just tired and I don't need people to remind me that I'm a strong person. It's not great. But resilience does signify strength. I found this word cloud that has different words: success, adversity, stronger, defense, teamwork, optimistic. What does resilience mean to you? Resilience means to me being able to bounce back from a difficult situation. And we all have those days. Chris has talked about the days when he was totally down and could not get up. But he's back. He's back up, and that's why he could have this conversation with us today. And that in itself is resilience. So big ups to you, Chris. Lawrence has talked about how the museum has been able to work throughout a pandemic. To me, that is resilience, being able to come up with new ideas, being determined to influence and change the world. Of course, it's important to balance resilience conversations with the fact that there can't be toxic resilience. When you try to push the narrative that people are strong and do not need to seek help, it's wrong. It's good to be resilient, but it's also good to seek help. But I'm going to be talking a bit about appreciative inquiry and why it means so much to me. In a world where there's just so much negativity, it's good to talk about something positive. And appreciative inquiry does that for me. I always try to balance it with the realities of life, even though it's very positive and it seems a little goody two shoes. But basically, this is what it is. It's an organizational development model. And what it talks about is it tries to find out within an organization, within a group, within a family, within a community, what works best. So it discovers what works. So you basically try to appreciate from a positive perspective what is happening within your community. So during COVID, we look around us and realize that so many organizations have come together, so many societies and communities have come together. We appreciate the fact that barriers have been broken in spite of the difficulties that we've had to go through. Going forward from that, we appreciate these strengths that we have already discovered, and then we dream. Dream sounds again a little too goody two shoes, but when we imagine what might be, we imagine a world where there's no coronavirus, there's no pandemic, we can go for holidays in Spain and Greece and have the time of our lives. But now that we are not in that place, while we are still stuck in this limbo, while we are still stuck right in the middle, what do we hope could happen? but based on the strengths that we have already discovered, that we've been able to break down barriers of stigma and racial barriers and religious barriers and socioeconomic barriers. What might be? What will a society that actually loves and cares for everybody look like? What will a society that appreciates everybody for the role they play look like? We imagine and dream about this. Then from dreaming, based on the strengths that we've already identified among ourselves, we design. And here, my personal favorite for designing anything or for coming up with an idea about fixing anything is conducting a self-SWOT analysis or a SWOT analysis on the situation. When I talk about a SWOT analysis, it's also a business-related model, but we talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. So during this period, when we look at our communities, what strengths have we been able to identify about our cultural values, about our resilience, about our ability to transform narratives, our ability to switch from physical meetings to virtual conversations, our ability to be kind, our ability to be strong. These are strengths that we have determined or we have been able to identify as a community, as a group of people. In spite of that, there are weaknesses. There are still the racial barriers, there are still the religious barriers, there are still the socioeconomic barriers that are still glaring, the health inequalities that have been amplified during this period. These are weaknesses. We do look at them, but we put them on the side and we look at them from the point of view of our strengths. Then we look at the opportunities. What opportunities do we have to get better as a people, as a community, as a nation, as an organization, as a person? What opportunity do you have to get better during this period? What are your threats? What stands in the way of your betterment? What stands in the way of your improvement? What stands in the way of the positivity? What stands in the way of the use of your strengths during this period? We think about that during the design stage. Then when we get to the destiny stage, we come and be realistic about what is actually in front of us, what we have identified as our strengths, keeping our weaknesses in mind, obviously, but knowing that we're strong enough to pursue this. We have all of these resources at our disposal. So how do we make use of these strengths to counteract the weaknesses? It's always important that we are able to balance things out and look at them from both perspectives, because not everything is black and white. Sometimes things are gray, and being able to understand the nuances and being able to understand the differences within our thought patterns and our values and our strengths and our ideas and our cultures is important, being able to keep all of this in mind. But going forward in the future, we need to think about dreaming together. We need to think about understanding perspective or understanding growth from a more positive point of view. Of course, again, not neglecting the negative, because it's really important to be realistic and understand that things are bad and they may not go the way we want to. But going forward, knowing that we are strong people, we are resilient people, that we have amazing resources at our disposal, what can we make use of? And I found this adopted Brazilian quote that says, "When I dream alone, it's just a dream. But when we dream together, it is the beginning of reality. When we work together following our dream, it's the creation of heaven on earth." I don't know what heaven looks like, but I look forward to a society where racial and religious and gender barriers and health inequality barriers are broken, so that we can come together, collaborate better, and support each other in a more positive manner. Of course, again, not neglecting the negative. I cannot stress that enough. But appreciating that we as a people, we as individuals are resilient, and being able to make use of our strengths and our opportunities to handle our threats and our weaknesses. Thank you.
There we go. Just waiting to drop in. Thank you very much, Angela. It's great to, like I said, I saw you on the teaser, and to see you actually deliver that with such passion. I love the. Well, I mean, as you know, with Brum Tech Tapas, we're all about one of the things we push forward is community and collaboration. So that collaboration aspect just really put into a much bigger scale across the whole of civilization is really kind of inspiring to see. So we've got a couple of questions from the team at the moment. So this one, you're working with Birmingham City Council. I kind of mentioned I kind of mentioned this in the intro. You're working with Birmingham City Council with the This Is My City Birmingham, which I believe is mainly to do with the Commonwealth Games legacy. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do for that?
Okay, so This Is My City is an initiative from an organization called United Community Activity Network, somewhat within the City Council. And what we do is we celebrate Commonwealth migration through food, music, arts, and sports. I work with UCAN in my capacity as a mental health professional and a community outreach officer. And I support a range of projects. At the moment, I'm handling a project called Dishes of Change, or Dishes of the Commonwealth, or Dishes in the Cupboard. It has a lot of names, but we have different sides. So there's one side of the project that basically has different Commonwealth dishes that we explore. So we explore the different Commonwealth countries, or about 6 or 8 countries, through the food that is cooked in those countries. So we have an online course where people sign on. We send them food parcels. We send them a chef's kit. They have a nice apron and a few measuring cups. And every week they get to engage and learn about a new country through food. It's exciting. It's simple. Still redesigning it, but we have a number of families that are taking on the course. So it's interesting. Also, we have a welfare aspect of it. During COVID, there's been a lot of food poverty. And in trying to support families on welfare who use food banks, we have a program that also delivers food parcels to different families on welfare, in addition to signposting them to other organizations. But rather than just give them the food and leave them to the mercy of cooking whatever they want, what we do is that we have a chef, a professional chef, that holds a cooking session like every Friday or so, and has people come on. We ask questions, we learn about different spices or how different people cook their food, and make use of the food parcels to cook a nutritious meal, so that people know how to stretch the package over a period of time, know how to cook a nutritious meal, and then can collaborate or have a chat with other people while we cook. So yeah, that's just one of the many things I do.
Cool. I love the sound of that. Dishes for Change. We've got one from the chat room here from Stuart Language. The communities I'm part of are mostly good. They have issues, but not many. But wider society, larger communities, not so. Unfriendly, divided, angry. Do we change society, or is that someone else's job, and how?
Well, society starts with us. You and yourself are society steward, and you can start the change. When people are angry and people are divided and people are unfriendly, because there's a lot of inequality and there's a lot of injustice, whether racial, whether religious, whether gender related, and people build walls or people build defenses based on how they are treated. Of course, people are generally not nice, so you can't do too much about that. But in your space and time where you can make an influence or make a change, the change starts with you and where you are in your community. Even if the people that are within your community are good, I believe you can make them better. Sometimes people just need to be shown kindness, because the only reaction to whatever challenges or discrimination or hurt they've had to go through is to fight back and be angry and be unfriendly. It's just their way of defense. It's their defense mechanism. But it doesn't hurt to smile at anybody. Well, we're wearing face masks now, so nobody can see you smiling. But it doesn't hurt to be kind. It doesn't hurt to go out of your way to do something nice for somebody, even if they're unfriendly or divided. It starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with us having these conversations about the fact that some of these barriers can be broken if we just take one thing at a time. Because you find that people are constantly bashed with negativity. I'll take, for instance, my research with the Black community. Okay, every time mental health is talked about, it's about stigma, it's about discrimination, it's about racism. There's nothing good that comes out about conversations that have to do with mental illness or mental health. But there are so many organizations, so many groups, so many things about Black culture, about sports, about music, about arts that supports resilience, or that supports mental health and well-being. If we began to have conversations from a more positive note, people will be less likely to have those barriers. People will be more willing to talk about it, because they know that you are not attacking them first of all. You're actually acknowledging that first, they are human and they have emotions, and those emotions are acknowledged, and then meet them where you can, right in the middle. It's possible.
That's awesome. I love the sort of takeaway of that that change starts with you. So from Fusion Technology Meetup, that was a great talk, Angela. Food for thought, and something that I guarantee that everyone watching tonight is passionate about. Where have you seen collaboration work well within our community in Birmingham?
Food, especially with food. I can't emphasize that enough. Everybody has gone out of their way to provide for somebody. Food banks, people have the program I work, for instance, for is run on a charity. People volunteer their time every Wednesday to go into Erdington and pack food packages for over 20 families every week. Over the last 5 or 6 months, people have constantly been doing the same thing. They do not know these people. They have no relationship with them. We've had people volunteer to say, I will drive and go and drop the food at various houses for 25 families. People of different races, of different religions, of different genders, people have just come together because food is a universal language, you know, and people are just willing to help solve this hunger or food poverty that is ravishing the city. Again, there's been a lot of collaboration with dealing with the homeless. If you notice, during lockdown, there weren't any homeless people on the streets. Different organizations came together to house homeless people, and there's so much more effort being put into housing homeless people now because we know that it's possible and the resources are available to do it. So there's just been so much collaboration in the city.
Cool. It's really really inspiring stuff to hear. Thank you so much, Angela. And I guess that we'll start to wrap up. Thank you very much. So it just remains for me to thank our fantastic speakers and, of course, you, our audience, for engaging with us and watching tonight. If you like what you see, tell your friends. If you know someone that could speak, get in touch on our website. Maybe that's you. Maybe it's someone you know. Go for it. As we're about community, I've got a couple of community events coming up to show people, just appearing on the screen now. Firstly, on the left, we've got an exhibition from Abbey 7 at the Custard Factory, who's part of Abbey 7's part of Steam House, and that's on the 25th and the 26th of June. And on the right, we have Brum's own Soweto Kinch, who I've been a long time fan of, alongside the other likes of people like Michael Kinwooker, who's sort of got massive at the moment. And he's doing his sort of saxophone, jazz, hip hop mashup type thing at Symphony Hall. I'm slightly biased, but personally the best music venue in the world for sound, on the 23rd of August. So that's definitely one for the diary. Tonight is only possible through the support of a select group of people. Change that. There we go. Who have helped us out. So here they are on the screen. A massive thanks go to MOS Comms, who we call Maeve O'Sullivan, and for Jump 24, the think tank, and UCB for playing a part in shaping the minds of people behind the talks and for lending us these superhumans for the night. Our next event looks like it might actually be in person, which is obviously quite exciting, but don't take my word for that. We'll just have to see how this pans out. It should be in September, so look for details soon and we'll publish them. On behalf of all of the team at Jump 24, thank you very much for joining us at Brum Tech Tapas, and good night.